What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for March 18, 2022. I am Graham Giason Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, having a great weekend so far. 2 weeks out from WrestleMania. It's crazy to think about. I will indeed be there. I'm very much looking forward to it. But wild to think the WrestleMania weekend is indeed in 2 weeks. Overall, largely speaking, not just for SmackDown, but Raw as well. Mostly SmackDown, but Raw included in this as well. The build to WrestleMania this year, the road to WrestleMania, has left a lot to be desired. This has been, I've seen people throw around the argument this is one of the weakest/worst WrestleMania builds ever. And honestly, that would not be much of a stretch to say. I would really have to go back and think about it. I was not around for a majority of the early WrestleMania builds, obviously. I only started watching about 15 years ago, so I can't say, oh, the build to WrestleMania 20 was worse than this, which I'm sure it wasn't, but just using that as an example. But still, the road to WrestleMania this year has not been great. And that's not to say that WrestleMania itself will be bad. I mean, we've had bad WrestleMania builds, and the WrestleManias themselves have been great. We've had WrestleMania builds that were terrible, and the WrestleManias ended up being awesome. So it really is hard to say. The card on paper is not the strongest it's ever been. They're lacking a lot of star power, over-reliance on celebrities, part-timers, people who aren't really ordinarily around on Raw and SmackDown throughout the year. People like Knoxville, people like Logan Paul, Ronda Rousey coming back, Brock being in there, which is fine. The Brock stuff I've been really enjoying for the most part. You know, Edge being on the card doesn't bother me because he's, again, been around for the most part since coming back 2 years ago. But people like that, though, you know what I mean? And like, they're not really focusing on the current talent as much. And even what they have the current talent doing isn't exactly inspiring stuff. You know what I mean? Like not Charlotte, but Sasha and Rhea and people like that being subjected to and relegated to tag team title stuff. Tag team title duty for titles that don't even mean anything. You know what I mean? And I can go up and down the card. The Usos facing Nakamura and Boogs. Who could possibly give a shit? I talked about that last week. Priest and Balor are having a fine little feud. Not on the level of what I was hoping for from the feud, but it's been solid so far. And just stuff like that. So, again, that really doesn't have a lot to do with this edition of SmackDown, which quite honestly I thought was better than I thought it would be. SmackDown has largely been lousy since the draft. I have talked about that time and time again here on the show, week in and week out, while breaking down SmackDown. But this edition of SmackDown, while far from great, far from a must-see show, was overall decent, I thought, and did a good job of furthering feuds, progressing storylines, heading into WrestleMania. Very little, if any, filler on the show, which I greatly appreciated. So it was a pretty straightforward show that I enjoyed for the most part. Far from a great show, far from must-see. You didn't really miss much if you didn't tune in. I thought the opening segment stuff was great, which I'll get to momentarily, or which I'll get to, in a moment. But the majority of the show wasn't really anything, oh, you really needed to see this. There was one great match in the middle there that I will get to. But the road to WrestleMania this year, like I said, has really left a lot to be desired. That's not to write off WrestleMania as a shit show. It's going to be awful. A lot of the matches on the card, honestly, I'm personally excited for, looking forward to. I think they can be fun. But WWE really should have done a better job with the road to WrestleMania this year, especially considering this is the first road to WrestleMania with fans from start to finish in 3 years. WrestleMania 35 was the last one because COVID interrupted things 2 years ago. We didn't have any fans for the road to WrestleMania last year. We only had fans at WrestleMania itself. So the build really should have been better. But, it is what it is, and we'll see what the show of shows has in store in 2 weeks. But to start off this show, we had Brock Lesnar wreaking havoc on the 20-year anniversary of his WWE debut. It was 20 years ago to the day that this man arrived in WWE on March 18th, 2002 on Monday Night Raw, one day removed from WrestleMania 18, another very good WrestleMania. Not one of the best of all time, I would say, but it was a good Mania and had that amazing classic match between Hulk Hogan and The Rock. But anyway, so Brock did not start off the show. That was Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and the Usos, the entire bloodline out there addressing Brock Lesnar. And Roman's going to be smashing and destroying Brock at WrestleMania, the same usual stuff. Heyman had notified the audience that Brock would not be there. The plane never took off from Saskatchewan or wherever Brock is from. I can't pronounce it to save my life, but, Saskatchewan, he wouldn't be there because of the plane not taking off. Only to find out Brock was indeed on his way, and not only that, he was in the building anyway. So they freaked the fuck out. They tried to leave the arena as quickly as possible, only for Brock to show up in a fucking forklift and crash right through the Bloodline's limo. And that was where we went to cut. They cut the commercial. So clearly they did that on purpose as a cliffhanger to leave you looking forward to seeing what they would do. Like, what the fuck just happened? Why? I mean, realistically, why they would cut to a commercial during that one spot specifically, I don't know. But, from an overall TV standpoint, I realized they did that to hook viewers to keep them watching through the commercial break. So I guess it accomplished its purpose in that respect, you know what I mean? But this was great, though. I mean, obviously no one was hurt. Roman and the Usos and Heyman probably would have been killed had they been legitimately just crashed by this forklift and with what Brock did to the car. It wasn't quite what the NWO did to The Rock 20 years ago, but it was pretty close as far as the mayhem that Lesnar was wreaking backstage. The mayhem that he was creating backstage, or in the parking lot, rather. It was quite the spectacle, to say the least. So that was a fun angle. Brock comes out, rips the door off the hinges because the Bloodline escapes in a pickup truck that they commandeered, as Michael Cole said later on in the show. Brock couldn't catch them in the truck, but he did catch the door and ripped it right off its hinges and brought it down to ringside with him. Brock is a freak of nature. But again, on the 20-year anniversary of his WWE debut, Brock is out there talking about Roman, and I'm glad we got to hear from Brock. We didn't see Brock on the show, Brock was on the show last week, I think. I'm pretty sure he was on the show last week. And we've been hearing a lot from Brock since he's been back at SummerSlam, and his mic work has been the best it's ever been. Without a doubt, obviously. It goes without saying. But he addressed the Bloodline and beating up Roman at WrestleMania and all this other stuff. Cowboy Brock is the best Brock. I talked about this in an article for Bleacher Report a couple of weeks ago, maybe just last week, and that, in my opinion, this is the best version of Brock Lesnar. And we've had a lot of great Brocks, Boombox Brock and Mariachi Brock and even Badass Brock and all these other different versions of Brock Lesnar over the years. But Cowboy Brock, to me, has been absolutely incredible. And I thought this was a great segment. I saw people complaining online, this took too long. It took up too much of the show due to the commercial breaks and whatnot. I mean, honestly, me watching this as a viewer, I enjoyed every second of this segment. I thought it was very well done. It got me more excited for the match at Mania, which I already was to begin with. And yeah, it's a match we've seen many, many, many times before. In 2015, 2016, 2021, 2018, all these other years where they've interacted, 2017. It's been 7 years this feud has been building for. But the build to this match specifically going into WrestleMania 38 has been fantastic. It's one of the best builds on the entire show, whether you like it or not. It's just a fact. It's been very well built since Brock came back at SummerSlam. They haven't done a million matches. They only had that one match at Crown Jewel since, Brock has been back, and in the latest renewal of this rivalry, the latest incarnation of this feud, they've only had one match, one-on-one. Not counting the various physical interactions between the two at the Rumble and the MSG House Show and on Raw and SmackDown and whatever. So I think what they've done with this feud has been great. I really like this segment. To me, it was the best thing on the whole show. I'm glad it kicked off the show. And I had no issue with this lasting 30 minutes, roughly 30 minutes, because it was all engaging shit. And I think they did a great job of, again, further building towards the Mania match. So I have no complaints here. We followed that up with a tag team match, Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs taking on Los Lotharios in a fine, fun little match. I think this could have been better with more time. I love Los Lotharios. I don't love the whole kissing of the plant thing. Not a literal plant, but what they call fans, quote-unquote fans, when they put them in the front row and they're not actually fans. They did that again this week with them kissing some random woman. And I guess it's a cute little gimmick for them to have. It really doesn't do much for me personally. But their in-ring ability is great. Humberto has never been better on the main roster as far as how he's been booked and presented and portrayed. He's been great alongside Angel Garza, who obviously could be a breakout single star on his own, and had a lot of. It seemed like he was destined for big things on his own as a single star early on, but we really haven't seen a ton from him lately up until reuniting with Humberto as a tag team partner. So Los Lotharios have been great. This was their match to lose, unfortunately. Nakamura and Boogs are the team challenging the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team titles at WrestleMania. They had to win here, and they did. So the match was fine. It accomplished what it needed to, a lot like the opening segment, as I said, and giving Nakamura and Boogs a win before they challenged for the tag titles at WrestleMania. Could they have had Los Lotharios win here in order to set them up as a multi-team match at WrestleMania? Yeah, but I'm glad they're not. I said this on the SmackDown review either last week or 2 weeks ago. I feared, and I still fear, they could do this. And listen, maybe a multi-team match would be better. but I just feel like it's the epitome of lazy booking just to throw in random tag teams. We're already seeing that with the women's tag team title match, which I'll get to momentarily. Love the match on the show. Don't love the fact they added another team to that match at Mania for literally no reason from a storyline standpoint. They did nothing to earn it. In fact, they lost last week, and I'll get to who that team is, again, like I said, later on. But with this match, not that Boogs and Nakamura versus the Usos has been this rageful rivalry. They literally just started this fucking storyline a week or two ago. But the New Day, or what's left of the New Day, have been feuding with Sheamus and Ridge. That doesn't really have anything to do with the tag team titles. The Viking Raiders already lost to the Usos. Lotharios have not been on TV in a few weeks. I'm glad it really is a straight-up tag team match, no matter how mediocre it might end up being. So I'm fine with no other teams being added. If Nakamura and Boogs do win the tag titles at WrestleMania, which I'm not confident they will, then a Nakamura and Boogs versus Los Lotharios feud coming out of WrestleMania would make sense. I mean, it's a feud we kind of saw a little bit late last year during Halloween season. They had that Tricker Street Fight tag team match. I remember that. Actually, I think Los Lotharios won, and they pinned Nakamura, who was the fucking Intercontinental Champion at that point. The feud didn't really make as much sense then. But if you do it as a tag team feud coming out of Mania, actually regardless of whether it's over the championships or not, I think would be fine. Speaking of tag teams and tag team matches, we got Drew McIntyre and the Viking Raiders versus Happy Corbin, Jinder Mahal, and Shanky in six-man tag team action. This was the match we were supposed to get last week before it turned into an angle instead where the heels attacked the Raiders backstage and McIntyre fended off the heels all on his own in the ring. So I'm not exactly sure why McIntyre needs a one-on-one match with Corbin at Mania when he's already proven, or why he even needed the Raiders here in a tag team match when he's already proven he could take on Corbin, Mahal, Shanky, and Madcap Moss all on his own. Speaking of Moss, though, they were advertising coming into the show, and I know they change plans constantly, but they did advertise coming into the show that it would be Madcap Moss in this match instead of Shanky. So I'm not sure what changed. Maybe they did address it backstage and I missed it. Moss tried to crack a joke that Corbin did not laugh at before they went out to the ring for the match. So maybe that's what happened there and they're teasing tension already. Why? I don't know. The Corbin and Moss pairing, as I've said before, their chemistry is fine. It's just like the bad joke shit that's terrible. The Madcap Moss name is kind of dumb. I don't really see much in Moss as a single star anyway on his own, so it doesn't really bother me that he's being paired off with Corbin as like a sidekick of sorts. The thing is that the joke shit, where they laugh and they laugh and they laugh, the hyena-esque gimmick, just isn't funny. That's the problem, and it's just not entertaining. It's more go-away heat from me than anything else. So we'll see where they go with that, but the heels did lose here. Corbin and McIntyre did not get their hands on each other. Corbin tried to, McIntyre tried to get his hands on Corbin. Corbin avoided it, and he got out of the match. McIntyre won the match by, I think, pinning Shanky with a Claymore kick, so the babyfaces reign supreme. McIntyre has largely dominated this feud, as he should, because Corbin and Moss are no threats to McIntyre. This whole feud is one complete waste of time. Its sole purpose is being a placeholder program for Drew, so they can keep him busy going into WrestleMania, and they have him on the card. I mean, honestly, I think they're probably building to something with Seth and Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, now that we know Cody is officially signed per PW Insider. I think it would have been better if they just did an inter-promotional match instead between McIntyre and Rollins. I mean, maybe you could have told the story that Rollins wanted another shot of the championship. McIntyre feels he's owed the shot of the championship because, remember, Rollins beat Roman by DQ at the Rumble. They never follow that up. There was never any follow-up to that at all. So you could have kept Rollins on SmackDown and done something there. They didn't. Now, Rollins doesn't even have a match from a storyline standpoint, even though he's likely going to be facing or doing something with Cody Rhodes at that show. And McIntyre's stuck facing fucking Baron Corbin. So that's just what it is. We had another tag team match after that, pitting SmackDown Sasha Banks and Naomi against Raw's Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan in an inter-promotional match of sorts. Brand split be damned. And I know Rhea and Liv are in the women's tag team title match at WrestleMania. They tend to break down the barriers of the brand split around WrestleMania season every fucking year. Like, oh, it's WrestleMania season, doesn't it matter? It doesn't matter who appears on what show, so I guess that's the excuse. But anyway, just got done talking about inter-promotional action with Rollins and McIntyre at Mania, if it went my way anyway, which it didn't, and it won't. But anyway, I thought this was a great match. I talked earlier about how the Brock, Roman, and the rest of the Bloodline stuff that started the show is my favorite thing on this show. The best bout on the show was this. They really went in there and killed it, and I fully expected them to get a few minutes. It would get interrupted, which it did anyway, but not before they had about 12 or 13 minutes of excellent in-ring action. These four women worked wonderfully together. Rhea and Liv as a makeshift tag team does nothing for me because Rhea really should be doing more on her own. At least it gets her on the card at WrestleMania. And considering that we now have Shayna Baszler and Natalya in the WWE Women's Tag Team match at WrestleMania, that tells me we're not getting a WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal because who the fuck is even left? Between Charlotte and Ronda, Becky and Bianca, I mean, what other women are even left to do a Battle Royal with? Aaliyah, Doudrop, and Nikki Ash? Tamina? Good Lord. Dana Brooke? God, no. So at this point, I don't think we're getting a WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. I wasn't sure we were getting one anyway, just because we haven't had one in 3 years. They didn't do it last year. They didn't do it the COVID year. They've only done it twice. That tradition's probably already over. But anyway, with Banks and Naomi against Rhea and Liv, this was a great match. And again, like I said, for as little as I care about another makeshift tag team between Rhea and Liv already had a tag team partner. She got released. Rhea already had a tag team partner 2 months ago that she broke away from. They work really well together, I will give them that. Sasha and Naomi, same thing. Naomi's coming off this long-running rivalry with Sonya Deville that really should have culminated at WrestleMania if it was going to go on for 6 fucking months. That feud went on forever. And if it was going to go on for that long, you really should have just culminated at WrestleMania, but whatever. Sasha should be doing more. She feels so undervalued right now. I'm not even sure the last time she got mic time on the show. Maybe we heard from her here on SmackDown. I feel like we haven't really heard a whole lot from Sasha in many months on TV, and I've said that before. It just feels weird to me they're not doing more with Sasha beyond the tag team title stuff, which doesn't automatically feel important just because she's involved. Like when Bayley and her held the belts about a year or two ago, I liked that because it made sense. They were already the focus of the women's division on Raw and SmackDown. They're not currently, Sasha's not doing shit on SmackDown right now, so it's not even really like she's a focal point on the show. But on the bright side, this was a great match, and they were given plenty of time to go out there and do their thing before getting interrupted by, as you probably predicted, Shayna Baszler and Natalya. Now, this was the same fucking team that literally lost a week ago to Sasha and Naomi. There were rumors going into SmackDown last week, which I addressed, I think from PW Insider, that Shayna and Natalya were slated to be added to the women's tag team title match at WrestleMania. That made me worried they would be beating Sasha and Naomi on the show, or last week on the show, and they didn't. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe that was just a rumor. Maybe it's not happening. Because why would you have this team that's not in the match lose if they weren't going to be added? Well, logic be damned, I guess, because they lost and they were added anyway because they attacked the baby faces in this match. And they had a stare off or they had a stare down with Queen Zelina and Carmella, who were still teasing tension. And they were later advised, or not advised, but informed by Sonya Deville backstage that they would be added to the WWE Women's Tag Team title match at WrestleMania to make it a fatal four-way tag team match. Again, how anyone could possibly care, I don't know. The belts mean absolutely nothing. But listen, if we get anything remotely similar to this match at Mania with these women, then I'm cool with it, because this was a great match. Carmella and Zelina, I'm not a big fan of really any of the teams in this match, because they all feel beyond fucking random. But all of those women can hold their own. Even Shayna and Natalya, I don't give a shit about Natalya, but she's a decent worker. I really like Shayna. That's a random team. But listen, from an in-ring standpoint, I'm trying to look at the positives here. Maybe it'll end up being worthwhile. But you know what? At least this match was great. Hopefully they're given time at WrestleMania, but time will tell. Pat McAfee apologizing to Austin Theory was up next. So Pat was told in his headset, or by Michael Cole or whoever, to go backstage and report to Vince McMahon's office, Mr. McMahon's office. We did not see the interaction, which is weird to me. Like, you hear a lot about Vince, and we see a lot from Vince on TV. Now with Austin Theory, he was on the Pat McAfee podcast. And I'm sure Vince was there, but he couldn't be bothered to be shown on screen telling Pat to go apologize to, Austin Theory. I think less of Vince on the show is better. Once in a while, it's good to see him. In a regular role, he's just not needed. The guy's like 70-something years old, not looking great, not sounding great. He looked good and sounded good on the Pat McAfee podcast, but I don't know if it's the cameras WWE use or what, but Vince never comes off well whenever he's on the show, cutting promos, speaking to anyone. So maybe it was for the better we didn't see him here. But he goes to the ring and says that he was forced. Otherwise, he would lose his job if not, which is, Michael Cole even speculating that was ridiculous. Why the fuck would Pat McAfee be fired before he even has the chance to face Austin Theory at WrestleMania? I don't know. But he had to apologize to Theory for what he did to him last week. And he ended up apologizing, and also he apologized for the ass-kicking he's going to give him come the WrestleMania match, and I think Theory shoved him and vice versa or whatever. So it was a fine little segment. The mic work here was great. I cut out a lot of what McAfee said, but he also mentioned growing up watching wrestling at the age of 11 on a no-name network named USA Network. Now, calling it a no-name network was weird. Thankfully, they weren't on USA Network, but they are on Fox. And I'm sure Fox didn't give a fuck that he said that, but I thought that was weird for him to say about one of the biggest networks that WWE has and that are paying them a lot of money to host Raw that has been infinitely worse than it was when they signed that deal a few years ago. So that was weird. But I thought that was cool too, because I started watching wrestling when I was 12. Like a lot of people start watching wrestling when they're like 5, 6, 7 years old. For me, it also wasn't until I was in middle school around 12 years old. So I can relate to his promo here, also watching Raw on USA Network. But anyway, I thought this was good. And for as random as this match is, coming together completely out of the blue a few weeks ago, they've done a good job with it. And I think the match could be fun. Pat McAfee proved in NXT. He's a very fun commentator, very fun to listen to on the on commentary behind the announcer's table. But he proved in NXT the guy's a tremendous talker. And I thought he did well here. Theory played his role well. And the match could be fun. Theory's no slouch in the ring. McAfee showed at the TakeOver shows back in 2020, and working with Adam Cole and the rest of the Undisputed Era, that he's fun to watch in the ring as well. So, I would hope that he had enough notice. And it seemed like it was a shoot when Vince told him on his podcast a few weeks ago that he would be wrestling at WrestleMania. That felt like he also found out for sure in that moment. So he probably only started training around that point. I don't know if he's consistently training. If he keeps in shape, I don't know if he's consistently training for wrestling. But anyway, I think the build so far has exceeded expectations. It could end up being a good match, and I'm not completely down on this match. Because so far the build's been fine. They've made the most of the short time they've had to build it up, and the actual match could be fun too. Let's limit Vince McMahon's interference and involvement in the match, and that'll be great. If he could show for a quick cameo at WrestleMania, I'd be fine with that. But any sort of physical involvement from Vince, I just don't think is necessary, and thankfully they did not either hint at that here or confirm that, which was great. We had Ridge Holland versus Kofi Kingston also on the show. Fine little match. Ridge Holland won with interference from Butch. So fucking dumb. And Sheamus. No King Woods. Obviously Big E broke his neck. He'll be out for a while if he'll be back at all, which I'm sure he will. But there was a lot of speculation this week that he might not be back at all because the injury was that serious. But anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, he's being outnumbered here. Is Kofi. Ridge beats him. They're beating up Kofi afterward. We've known for months. Like, I know Woods wasn't in the Rumble, but he has been cleared for at least a month and a half now. Where the fuck is King Woods? Why aren't they using him? I figured they would bring him back to team with Big E and Kofi at Mania against the heels. I don't know if they're... I honestly have no clue. I'm thinking now, because Ricochet wasn't on this show, they have shown no indication. They have indicated nothing that would tell me that they are doing an Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania. And I love the idea from people that it could be, like it should be a Scott Hall tribute ladder match. I think that'd be cool. If it has meaning behind it, I think that'd be fucking awesome. But I think it's a little too late for that. We only have like 1 or 2 SmackDowns left, so that's not happening. I don't think anyway. Maybe they throw it together next week. Who knows? But I think it's more likely that Kofi continues to get beat down by the heels. Maybe next week. The week after, I don't know. And we have in a random 6-man tag team match at one of the nights of Mania, Kofi, the returning King Woods, and Ricochet against Ridge Holland, Sheamus, and Butch. That seems more likely. I'm glad that Ridge Holland has no heat for unintentionally injuring Big E last week. It was a mistake. He's got to learn from it and be more fucking careful because that was very scary. And I'm even happier that Big E's doing well. He's been posting a lot of videos on Twitter in good spirits, which is great. Very happy to see that. And again, I don't know if he'll be back. I doubt he'll be back anytime soon. But if he can keep us busy with entertaining Twitter videos on his social media, then I'm all for it. I think that's perfectly fine. So I'm glad they offered an update on his status on this show after we're not really talking about it, I don't think at all, on Raw this week. And I know Big E's a SmackDown guy, but that's still a pretty serious injury to be neglecting on your main television shows, So we closed out this show with Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. Some more from these two. I thought this was good. They've really ramped it up in recent weeks, which is nice. We really should not be hearing a lot from Ronda. She's not a great talker. Whatever they have scripted for her is not great. I don't know. I thought what they were doing with her when she first came in 4 years ago was a lot better than this stuff. But the build lately has been, largely fallen flat. It really has not been great. What they did last week and this week, I thought was better. The parking lot brawl last week was good. The attack here from Charlotte on Ronda was intense. They beat the fuck out of each other at ringside very briefly. Hopefully neither of them are hurt. And, so Ronda Rousey ended up getting laid out by Charlotte, and that was the end of the show. So Charlotte needed the heat. I mean, Charlotte's a made woman, obviously, but she needed to show that Ronda is vulnerable and that she has a chance of beating her. They're telling the story, can Ronda tap out? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I would be shocked if Charlotte won, to be honest with you. I think if we're going to get a heel win at WrestleMania in the main event, it would be Roman. I'm expecting Roman to win. Charlotte beating Ronda, I would absolutely not do that. I like Charlotte a lot. I like Ronda too, but I think Ronda is the right woman to take the championship here. She really is. We need something new on this show. Not that Ronda being champion is going to answer their, all their issues and be the answer to all of their problems, but it's something different if nothing else. So I'm glad that Charlotte got the upper hand here. It was necessary. It was a good angle. It set up the match at Mania, further that feud, put more heat on Charlotte, made Ronda look vulnerable. Hopefully the crowd rallies behind her next week and the week after. They are in Brooklyn, I think, next week, so that might not be, they might boo Ronda. Who knows? Brooklyn's an odd bunch. I mean, look no further than Survivor Series. They fucking booed that entire women's elimination match, which wasn't the most exciting, but I was there for that show, and I was pretty pissed that people were fucking booing the whole time for the women, which was just bizarre and weird to me. But anyway, good way to close out the show, what I thought was a pretty solid edition of SmackDown this week, which you can't say a lot about these editions of SmackDown. A lot of them just aren't really that good. Last week's was a fucking train wreck between the Big E injury and the Butch shit and everything else. This was a much better effort. I like the show closing angle with Charlotte and Ronda. The Holland and Kofi stuff was fine while it lasted, furthering that feud. I like what they did with McAfee in Theory. The opening segment was terrific with Lesnar and the Bloodline. I thought that was great. Nakamura and Boogs versus Los Lotharios served its purpose. The six-man tag team match was fine. And I thought the women's tag team match, Banks and Naomi against Rhea and Liv, was fantastic. So make time for that. Make time for the opening segment. Far from a must-see show, like I said. It's not like, you really need to be watching SmackDown Weekly. I would not say that at all. You're probably better off listening to my reviews or reading the recaps or whatever. But still, I thought this was a better edition of SmackDown than I was expecting, which is a nice change of pace given how dull SmackDown has been for many months now. Thank you guys for checking out my audio review of this show for March 18, 2022. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. We're very likely going to have my Talking Smack review for this week up, from today up tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. More interviews coming leading up to WrestleMania. A bunch are in the can that I just haven't posted yet, so keep an eye out for those. Haven't been as consistent with the videos lately. There are some days I'm missing putting up videos. I've just been extremely busy lately. But I'm actually working on putting together some WWE 2K22 content. I got the game last week. It's a fucking great game. And I'm hoping that I can continue to play it and also post some footage of me playing it and talking over it and doing shit like that here on the channel. So keep an eye out for that in the days and weeks to come as well. Have an awesome rest of your weekend, folks. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.